price cuts have hit the market. So when do you actually see that translating into volume recovery? Can we say that will be closer to that 50-50 level that Mr. Rohit was talking about the next fiscal, or can we see some signs of that going towards that later into this in the second half of this fiscal as well?
Yeah, so let me do the pricing question, and then we'll hand over to Rohit for festival. So on pricing, as you know, in this quarter we had roughly flat price growth, and our view going forward, Shilpa, is if commodities remain where they are, we would see in fact marginally negative price growth in short term. So that's the pricing outlook given where the commodities are at this point in time. Of course, on a long-term basis, commodities are cyclical, which means what has come down will go up, what's gone up will come down, and it will stabilize. And on a long-term basis, to Rohit's earlier point, we do see FMCG growth roughly 50-50, where we expect half the market growth indeed to come from price and half should come from volume. So that should come. But given where we are at this point in time, that's where the equilibrium is. Second, even in this quarter, Shilpa, in current quarter, we did take price decreases. We did price decrease in soap business. We also took price decreases in our laundry portfolio, because this is where we have given the full impact of all commodity, which has moderated. And typically we've seen that a quarter later, consumers will start seeing benefit of all of that as the trade pipeline clears up. Market had seen 14% price growth at one point in time. Over last 4 quarters, it has now come to 3% in the current quarter, where we have 0% price growth in the quarter. So I expect a quarter more for that fuller impact to be seen to the consumer. But when the equilibrium will come back, in my view, is more cyclical and more, I would say, a few quarters down the line as we start seeing commodities starting to stabilize. But let me hand over to Rohit on festival.
Yeah, I think just want to state the fact that very important indicator is the competitiveness of the volume growth, and we see in large parts of our business we're competitive by volume, and the derivation of that on top line, and eventually we're a big business with mixed of many categories, so you see an average number. What we're tracking is, are we investing on our brands competitively, which we are. As I mentioned to you, this quarter we've increased our A&P by 420 basis points, 65% over last year, and we know we are very competitive, and we'd like to stay there. We can start to see that in our competitiveness and volume, which is quite healthy. And now we just have to stay the course and keep doing the right thing for the business to eventually find that stabilized level when the cyclicality of this is over. And it is across different businesses at different parts. Now, coming back to the demand question, what's very encouraging is that we are in a market where we see growth coming back in rural, although they are on a weak base. We also see growth coming back on a positive way in urban. And if you zoom further, we see more growth in urban, in large packs, in more in higher income households. We believe there's also strong government investment in infrastructure, which is finding its way into the economy. And that is creating a tailwind. And we believe secularly, this is a good trend. And as far as the next quarter is concerned, we hope that we are able to leverage the festival and the demand is positive. There, of course, is the unknown and the downside of monsoons. We can't say what impact it'll have. But generally speaking, we are very optimistic, and that's how we'd like to operate in this business, with optimism, but with one foot in reality.
All right, thank you. I'll come back in a bit with more questions on that there.
Sure.
Minnie, would you like to ask the next question?
Yes, sure. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So, I want to take back a step back, because last quarter we had spoken about some of the competition coming in from smaller and regional players. One, what is the update on that we have? Is that still a tough competition coming in, and which categories? And also in terms of rural outlook, like you were mentioning, that unseasonal monsoon, that is something that has impacted FMCG players overall in terms of the movement that we're seeing. So how is the rural outlook now looking like, so that we can look at, forward looking, does it look that we could see some recovery coming in?
Pritesh, would you like to just respond?
Yeah. So let me pick up first the rural. And what we're seeing for rural, the demand is recovering gradually. And of course, the point still is that the growth that we've seen now of roughly 7% volume in rural market, it's on a base of a 9% decline same period last year. So if I look at a 2-year basis, there is still a marginal 1% decline in rural volume, which means the markets are not yet fully recovered. So that's one. But what is really helping this point in time, the recovery, the point Rohit mentioned earlier, inflation moderating gives more disposable income to rural consumers. That hence is leading to recovery of demand, though gradually. We have seen the real rural wages, which were negative, have now come into some positive territory. That's a good news. We have seen that the government expenditure to support rural economy had been increased a few years back, and that has been maintained at a high level. That is helping rural recovery, and equally higher amount of capex which is getting spent both in last budget and the current budget put together. That is also supporting overall rural income. So there are many factors which are, let me say, in favor of rural demand recovery, albeit the recovery is gradual. And of course, to Rohit's point earlier, we have to watch out in terms of monsoon. Monsoon has been uneven, and we know that we are ending the period with a lower amount of reserve level as well. So we have to see what impact it plays out on the Kharif output now and Rabi sowing later point in time. Overall, we do remain cautiously optimistic and expect demand to continue to recover gradually. So that's on rural demand. And if I just probably answer your question on competitiveness, I mentioned in my opening remarks as well that overall, we have seen small players when commodities do come down, and we have seen at mass end more amount of competitive intensity as more players now are participating in the market. That happened in tea to start with, where the loose tea prices came down, premium tea got inflated more, and almost the commodity decoupled. And hence we saw more demand of consumers down trading, and hence we saw that loose tea players doing much better business. That was one element which was happening. Second element on competitiveness was again in mass end in, let me say, detergent bar. Very similar as commodities came off, we've seen that element of the market growing faster than large players. So in pockets of those certain geographies at certain price point, especially mass end, we have seen competitive loss. But overall, the point we mentioned earlier that on a 2-year basis, we have strong market share gains. Even on current year, we have market share gain, and our volume growth in terms of competitive volume growth in more than 75% of the business, we are gaining volume share as well.
Thank you, Ritesh. Nupur, would you like to ask the next question?
Hi, sir.
Hi, Nupur.
Asking the next question. हाय सर मेरा एक सवाल, मेरे 2 सवाल है बेसिकली. जैसे कि आप बता रहे थे कि गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर में हमने बढ़त देखी है, तो रूरल डिमांड ग्रेजुअली इम्प्रूव हो रही है. तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि इलेक्शन ईयर भी है, स्टेट इलेक्शंस की भी डेट आ चुकी है, नेक्स्ट ईयर इलेक्शन भी है, तो आने वाले जो 6 मंथ्स होंगे वो रूरल डिमांड वो बेटर होगी बीते 6 महीनों से. और मेरा सर दूसरा सवाल ये था कि ब्यूटी एंड पर्सनल केयर में हमने देखा कि आपने नए लॉन्चेस किए विंटर से पहले. विंटर्स और फेस्टिव सीजन इस बार कंबाइन हो रहा है, तो यहाँ पे क्या एक्सपेक्टेशन है, स्पेशली ओरल केयर को भी लेकर?
रितेश, आप पहला सवाल लेंगे, मैं दूसरा प्रश्न उत्तर दे सकता हूँ.
Yeah, so rural, as I spoke, Nupur, earlier, so we are seeing gradual recovery. And as I mentioned, there are more than one factors which are helping the recovery, be it heightened level of expenditure which has remained, be it capex which government is spending, which is going to help recovery in terms of more rural wages. We know that after agriculture, the second most important job source for rural people is nothing but construction activity. So heightened capex should also help rural demand overall in terms of jobs. We have seen rural wages going up and now in a little positive.
सर मैंने स्काईस्केप में घर ले लिया.
स्काईस्केप वही है ना, शाम होते ही मच्छर टेक ऑफ कर देते हैं और मेट्रो का काम चलने से पूरी टर्बुलेंस रहती है वहाँ, है ना?
आपने कहाँ देख लिया?
99 एकर्स रेटिंग्स एंड रिव्यूज. जो साइट विजिट ना दिखाए वो ये बताए. अब हर कोई बनेगा प्रॉपर्टी एक्सपर्ट विद 99 एकर्स. घर लेना हो या बेचना, 99 एकर्स से ही पूछना.
मैं कोशिश करता हूं कि आपको हिंदी में जवाब दूं, और उसके बाद अगर कुछ एक शब्द जो है मैं अंग्रेजी बोलूंगा तो जस्ट फॉर द सेक ऑफ क्लैरिटी. जहां तक ब्यूटी एंड पर्सनल केयर का सवाल है, वो हमारे लिए बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट डिवीजन है, और उसका जो मेन सूत्र है सक्सेस का वो होता है इनोवेशन. और हम इससे बहुत खुश हैं जो हमने काम किया है उसमें. विंटर के लिए वैसलीन ब्रांड है और हमारे जो बाकी ब्रांड्स हैं ग्लो एंड लवली और पॉन्ड्स, और उनमें नए नए पैक जो हमने लॉन्च किए हैं जो इस मार्केट विंटर मार्केट के लिए अप्रोप्रिएट हैं. और हम काफी एक्साइटेड हैं जो रिटर्न्स हमें दिख रहे हैं ब्यूटी एंड वेलबींग कैटेगरी में. हमारी इनोवेशन के इन्वेस्टमेंट के रिटर्न जो नजर आ रहे हैं वो अच्छे नजर आ रहे हैं. तो इन सब में ये कहना चाहूंगा कि हम लोग काफी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक हैं. हमारी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कैटेगरी है और हम इस पे काफी जो है मेहनत कर रहे हैं, और इसका जो ड्राइवर है ग्रोथ का वो इनोवेशन रहेगा, प्रीमियमाइजेशन रहेगा और नए चैनल्स में जो है पहले पहुंचना रहेगा। और हम देख रहे हैं कि जैसे ई कॉमर्स चैनल्स हैं या ब्यूटी स्टोर्स हैं, फार्मेसी स्टोर्स हैं, सब जगह पे है जो हमारा पोर्टफोलियो काफी कंपेटिटिव है और हमें जो है मार्केट शेयर भी जो है अपना बढ़ता नजर आ रहा है और हम आगे आने वाले क्वार्टर्स में भी जो है इस पे काफी तवज्जो और अटेंशन देते रहेंगे। ये हमारा जो है पक्का इरादा है।
And Nupur, even in this quarter, if I just call out hair category, we've seen high single-digit growth. Skincare, we've seen double-digit growth. So we also have very strong performance within beauty and personal care in this quarter.
Thank you, Ritesh. Vinny, would you like to ask the question?
Yeah, I have one more question, and I just wanted an update and specifically on the HFT segment. What's happening on that, and how is our recovery timeline looking? Which was under pressure. We've spoken about that before, so if you could just give me an understanding on that as well.
I think I can respond on our strategic view of this category, and Ritesh can help me with a little bit more on the granularity of how our performance has been so far. First of all, we see HFD as a big core category for HUL. It is sweetly positioned on what we are good at, which is market development with low underpenetrated categories and a category and a brand that's good for the community. As you know, that there is high level of undernutrition and malnutrition is quite prevalent in our society, and if we grow Horlicks and Boost and category brands within HFD, they will be good for the growth and health of our larger community. So we feel we're in the right business. Now we've been very, very more focused on growing the market through more users, more usage, and more premium. As far as more users are concerned, we've seen success over the last 3-4 years with penetration growing. In fact, growing quite handsomely through investments in sampling, through assortment, lower price access packs. We've also seen, insofar as premiumization is concerned, a success in the new portfolio, science-based portfolio that you launched, which is the whole adult range, the plus range, where we see high levels of growth and, in fact, a whole lot of upside in the years to go forward. Our core Boost brand's doing quite well, very, very nicely positioned, very, very good brand, and leveraging the whole Boost with Secret My Energy and the whole cricket archetype. We do need more work to be done insofar as consumption is concerned, which is the more usage part of the market development equation. In that, the category has been impacted by the fact that we've had to take huge price increases on account of inflation of milk. And milk is also a double whammy because it's also used in consumption of the product. So mothers have had to titrate. But as we go forward, we feel as milk prices even up, and as we remain very, very focused on why a cup of Horlicks is really good for your child, which is it makes your child taller, stronger, and sharper, we are beginning to see returns to that investment. So we will remain steadfast and focused for the long term. We know this is a big category in also other Southeast Asian countries where it exists. It's also very, very attractive for us from a profitability and structure. So structurally, we will be able to create a lot of value, and we've done well so far on that front. And I'd like Ritesh to color it more with the financials so we can complete the picture.
Sure. So as Rohit mentioned, that all our consumer metrics are looking very green. We have increased our penetration, and hence overall category penetration has gone up. Our market shares are higher as we have acquired the business, and even in this period, we have further gained market share. So we are consolidating our competitive position there. Our portfolio is stronger and broader compared to what we started with. So our consumer metrics are looking pretty good. Along with that, we have also increased, as we had merged our go-to-market in terms of distribution, we also have higher direct coverage. And if I talk a little more about the margin for the business, over the last 3 years, as we acquired the business, we have driven cost synergies across the board, be it overheads, be it supply chain, be it media synergies. And because of that, we have generated good amount of, let me say, fuel for investment for the business, which is what has funded our market development. In fact, bulk of the savings that we have generated across.
ये सब जहाँ शुरू हुआ था, वही खत्म करते हैं।
ऑफ द टाइगर पीछे से वार करते हैं कायर अल्फाजों में आग मौत के शायर ढूंढू खुशी मैं मौत में शायर मैं इसी के लायक ना कोई इनायत ना माना खुदा ना पड़ी कोई आयत ना मेरे गुनाहों की कोई जमानत मैं अमर हूं जब तक ना होगी कयामत
My time to shine, cause the world is mine. It's my time to shine, cause the world is mine. It's my time to shine.
जिंदगी में अगर ऐसा कुछ चाहिए जो पहले ना मिला हो तो ऐसा कुछ करना पड़ेगा जो पहले ना किया हो.
3 crores. So 3 crores is average salary of a prompt engineer working in USA. So what is prompt engineer? Prompt engineer is a person who is efficient at talking to AI. Means who is efficient at using ChatGPT, Midjourney and other AI tools. So the best thing you can do right now is learn how you can talk to ChatGPT effectively and use other AI tools. Hi. My name is Aditya Kachwe. I am a graduate of IIT Kharagpur and co-founder of multiple 8-figure companies like Mad About Sport, Beat, NX and Muni EdTech. In my 2 hours workshop, I am going to teach you how you can leverage ChatGPT by giving killer prompts and
going back into ANP spends. Like for the next quarter, I'm sort of trying to understand how much more are we dialing that up.
Yeah. So Rohit, let me answer the margin question. I'll hand over to you on FNR volume and margin overall. So overall margin, Shilpa, if I just exclude the one-off that we had this quarter, we are at 23.8% EBITDA margin, which is very healthy. And what we believe that at this point in time, we want to maintain that margin in a healthy range. And focus will continue to be on driving more amount of investments in the business. Now, we expect that ANP investments, which Rohit mentioned earlier, this quarter we had 420 BPS more investment, albeit on a base which was a little softer because of high inflation last year, but still significantly high, 65% more investment in ANP. And that was possible because we have recovered of gross margin loss. The point I had articulated earlier, at the peak of inflation, we had lost 600 BPS of gross margin. In this quarter, year on year, we've improved 700 BPS gross margin. So our gross margins now are back to pre-inflation levels. From here on, our job will be very simple, which is to focus on competitive volume growth. And to support that, keep driving our muscle of generating savings end-to-end in the organization. We speak about our Symphony program, which generates roughly 7% gross savings. And across all the lines of the P&L, be it promotion, be it media, be it supply chain or overhead, we have any cost which is not helping consumers, we challenge in the organization. And with that savings that we generate, we deploy that back in the business on innovation, on market development and capability building. So our P&L play going forward will be that. First of all, on ANP, ensure continuously the way we've done in the past, share of voice ahead of share of market. We continue investing for capability and innovation in the business. And to do that, keep generating fuel for investment by driving Symphony and improving mix. So that will be the financial growth model. Margin enhancement in mid to long term, our ambition is to do modest margin improvement, which will come from mix and volume leverage in mid to long term. But in short term, we are at healthy margin and our focus will be competitive volume growth. Let me hand over to Rohit on FNR outlook and reason for what the performance of the quarter was.
Yeah, I think if you look at our food and refreshment.
Well, that was the management of Hindustan Unilever, which just came out a short while ago with their Q2 numbers. And of course, we did have a whole slew of FMCG companies, in fact, that are putting out their numbers. We heard from Nestle earlier in the morning, where we did see their profits as well as revenues pretty much in line, but we did see a squeeze in the margins. But if you have to look at HUL on the other side, we are seeing all of those numbers coming in lower single digits, but definitely beating estimates, we could suggest at this point, although the numbers are quite just seeing barely in lower single digits is what we are seeing the growth at. But let's break down each of the numbers for HUL and the other FMCG companies that are also going to be putting out the results, such as ITC as well as Tata Consumers later today. And we look at Nestle and the stock split that the board has also approved and what those ramifications are going to have on the markets. And to do that, joining me is Sonam Srivastava, Thank you so much, Sonam, for joining us on the show. Let's just get into first HUL now that we've just heard the management also being pretty cautiously optimistic, and that's the word they've also put out, and saying that they're looking at rural demand still subdued at this point. Volume growth has only been just about 2% in Q2. So what are we to make of HUL numbers starting with?
Yeah, I think the numbers, like you said, they have outperformed the expectations, which is always a good thing for results, right? So even though Nestle has given amazing results in the double digits, HUL has outperformed the estimates that analysts had put in for it, right? So which is a good thing. It talks about the resilience of HUL, right? So it has had a diverse sort of growth across different segments. I think the beauty products have done really well, whereas their, food products have not done that well, right? So it has been a diverse mix of growth for HUL. It speaks about the resiliency that HUL has as a large company to compound its growth and sort of beat the estimates from analysts. And, we've seen a lot of challenges coming out from the FMCG sector, right? From bad rainfall to fluctuation in the commodity prices, the global supply chain, worries, and still, the company is able to beat estimates. So I think it's a positive for the company.
Right. Let's look at the segmental growth, because that's where you pointed out also the food and refreshment business vertical this time around is seeing a revenue growth of just about 2.6%, whereas the EBIT is down for this quarter at 3.2%. So like you mentioned, we've seen erratic monsoons that can play out, inflation in all of those prices, those tomato prices that went berserk during this quarter. So is that likely to continue, or you say like the worst is behind and then we could see some bit of change going ahead?
Yeah, I think inflation is definitely expected to ease. So both the RBI as well as other commentators on the economic data talk about inflation easing in India. So we do expect inflation to ease. The monsoon in August, if you look at it, was the worst in decades, right? We had a 36% deficit in August. So I think these challenges sort of remain on the food side. Inflation has been a worry. And, if you look at the consumption demand, if you look at the rural demand in India, they haven't picked up that much, right? The rural demand has been a worry, and that has had an impact on the food segment for HUL. But I think, with the infrastructure spending going on, with the growth in India being extremely strong, right? And good projections coming out across the board, as we can see from the earnings this quarter, right? Earnings across the board have been pretty robust, right? We don't see any big declines happening. So we think the economy is in a strong place, and FMCG and demand should grow in the next few quarters. So I think the worst might be behind us with these inflation numbers, and we could see a recovery on the rural and the food economy going forward.
So right, we are hoping to see a recovery, especially in rural demand, which even HUL is pointing out it's still subdued at this point. But in terms of volumes, that one also not picking up. So are we likely to see this stretch for a few more quarters, at least that turnaround for FMCG not in sight for this fiscal?
Yeah, I think that is a little tough to predict. But yes, I think that area itself has been stressed, right? The urban demand might have been strong, but the rural demand hasn't been able to pick up very robustly in the past few quarters at least. Obviously, this is election year. We might see, a surge in demand because of the SOPs coming out due to elections. But it is very tough to say, if it happens in the next quarter or in the next couple of quarters. But FMCG is a seasonally strong sort of sector with the festive season coming on. We'll see demand coming in, right? And I think even in, if there is volatility in the market, FMCG tends to remain strong, right? Because FMCG is a non-cyclical business, right?
Yeah.
सर मैंने स्काईस्केप में घर ले लिया है।
स्काईस्केप वही है ना, शाम होते ही मच्छर टेक ऑफ कर देते हैं और मेट्रो का काम चलने से पूरी टर्बुलेंस रहती है वहाँ, है ना?
आपने कहाँ देख लिया?
99 एकर्स रेटिंग्स एंड रिव्यूज, जो साइट विजिट ना दिखाए वही ये बताए। अब हर कोई बनेगा प्रॉपर्टी एक्सपर्ट विद 99 एकर्स। घर लेना हो या बेचना, 99 एकर्स से ही पूछना।
crossed that 5,000 crore mark, and they're also seeing a good jump in its profit. They've seen a one-time gain as well this time around of about 100 odd crores. So how is the picture so different if you're looking at a 36% jump of profits for Nestle, whereas HUL still in those lower single digits? So how do you look at these dichotomies that we are seeing, or should we be putting them into